So if you want, turn in your Bibles to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. So we're just gonna, I've been reading really through Matthew and kind of studying through it, but occasionally I'll hear something and it just piques my interest, and usually I know that God's talking. And so in the past I used to, whenever I hear something, I was just like make a notice of it and just be like, oh, I'll get to it sometime. Just like I used to do years ago. Someone would come up to me and be like, hey, or I'd see somebody on Facebook or something say, hey, pray for this, pray for that, or I'd go up to somebody and be like, yeah, I'll pray for you and stuff, and then I'd just put that in my notebook or whatever, or in my brain or whatever. And then, a few years ago I don't remember where it was, I heard something perhaps, and it was just like, hey, instead of just saying I'll pray for it, either you can pray with them right then, a lot of people do it, or immediately when I left, I prayed right then. In the car is one of the best places to do it, just to get it over and done with. That way, number one, I didn't want to be a liar by telling somebody that I was praying for them, but number two, I just wanted to make sure that I was actually doing what I said I was doing. Well, the same thing whenever I feel like there's a nudging, like to go check out something in the Bible, like from God. I'll hear something, whether it's like a testimony, and we're going to hear here in a little bit, or something. Instead of just saying, oh, that's nice, someday I ought to go back and read, that here in the near future. And instead of letting what I'm currently doing, like reading through the book of Matthew, hinder me, like, well, why not? Let me just go. I can read it. I can always get back to Matthew. And so that's what I did. Went back and just read the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, and like, this is great. It's actually very pertinent, and something we can apply. And it affects me right now. And I'll get to that in just a minute. So really, the quick overview of Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Well, the synopsis, first of all, is chapter 1 is a reflection on the transitory nature of life and the futility of trying to find satisfaction and meaning in worldly pursuits. So in the verses 1 through 3, it says life is fleeting and uncertain. The author reflects on the cyclical and unending nature of time and the futility of trying to grasp or hold on to it. Verses 4 through 11, the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom is also fleeting. The author reflects on the difficulty of acquiring true knowledge and wisdom, and the fact that even the wisest person will eventually die and be forgotten. And in verses 12 through 18, the pursuit of pleasure and worldly success is ultimately empty. The author reflects on the fleeting nature of pleasure and worldly success, and the fact that they do not bring lasting fulfillment or happiness. So the author of Ecclesiastes, which is interesting, most of us have no idea who the author of Ecclesiastes would be.
Solomon.
Preacher. So Solomon. It's interesting. That's why you need to stick to the Word of God, read what it says, let it speak to you. In this Bible I have here, it says the author, doubtful but possibly Solomon. There's so many clues in here, and yes, I guess I can see somebody could have a doubt because it doesn't come out and say his name, but he does say he's the son of David, and he does say that he has more wisdom than anybody that comes before him. If you put two and two together, it's probably not going to be Nathan, it's probably not going to be Absalom or any of the other ones, so most likely it's Solomon. And so this is Solomon. We know that Solomon was the wisest person. We know that God came to him and asked him what he would do, and he said he wanted a heart that understands the people and wisdom to be able to judge them righteously and whatnot. And God says, because you've asked this and have wealth and riches and all that stuff, God gave him all those things. But unfortunately, God also had a list of rules that were already in place before that. They gave David before him and any king that come that he's not supposed to multiply riches unto himself. He's not supposed to get horses and things out of Egypt, and he did all those. He's not supposed to multiply wives to himself. And yet Solomon did those things. He did exactly what, and remember, we always quote the verse, if my people who are called by my name, remember the first of that is that word if. God always puts something there. Hey, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to take care of Israel. I'm going to take care of the kingdom with a big if you do this. And this is what he said to them. This is what he promised. Part of his promise comes, what's the word I'm looking for? It comes with
Conditions.
Conditions. That's what I was trying to think. I did not think of the word conditions. It comes with conditions. It's conditional. And the sad thing with Solomon is of all the things that God gave him, he thought it was still necessary. There still was something that wasn't satisfying enough in what God gave him, that he still sought more. Even as the wisest person, you'll see that, like for example, it says in verse 17, it says, "And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly." Even with the wisdom that God gave him, it wasn't enough for him. He gave his heart to it, which means that he pursued after it with everything he had to get more and more. He was never satisfied. And the Bible says that there are three things that are never satisfied: the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And it just we went through that in the book of James, and it's interesting that happens with each and every person in life. No matter what you're given, you always want more and to know more. And he wanted more riches, he wanted more fame, he wanted more wealth, he wanted to work harder than anybody else, but in the end, it was just futile. Nothing happened to him. Like I said, so the synopsis is a reflection of the transitory nature in the life and futility of trying to satisfy or find satisfaction and meaning in worldly pursuits. So let's just go ahead and read here. It says in verse 1, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he hath taken under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh. But the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place whence the rivers came, thither they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, See, this is new? It hath been already of the old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of the things that are to come, with those that shall come after. I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. I communed with mine own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and I have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me. In Jerusalem, yea, my heart hath great experience and wisdom and knowledge, and I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. And real quick, turn to the very last chapter of Ecclesiastes, the last two verses. Very last chapter. So, chapter 12, verses 18. And here it is. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So we just went through, basically, like I said, we went through the synopsis that life is fleeting. There's a pursuit of knowledge and wisdom is also fleeting. And the pursuit of pleasure and worldly success is just ultimately empty. Now, it's interesting that man goes through the same things over and over again. We have our highs, we have our lows, and yet we're never satisfied, and that's why we have the highs. So I just saw something recently that was very interesting to me. It's about, it was some book that was written in 1997, it's called The Turning or something. I didn't read it or anything, but it just had some interesting facts about a generation for us is about every 20 years, and it goes, and then there's a turning, what this book says, I don't know what it is, but it's about every 80 years. And it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of interesting because you have, during those 80 years, you have segments, you have 20 years here, 20 years there. Every generation, there's something new and something that changes. So, for example, the destruction of a generation, so you're like, you have the Revolutionary War, then you have the Civil War about 80 so years later. You have the Great Depression, and you have where we're at now about 80 years since then. And you see a great rise and fall right after the Great Depression. You have World War II, and you have people coming out of the Great Generation. And they're just right after, you have another big falling. Anyways, all it's saying is that about every 80 years, I could go into a lot. There's a lot of it in my mind. I'm trying to remember, but every 80 years, in that time, you have a stabilization after a big fall. You have a rise or an intellectual period, and then you have people that start the downward trend until it all comes to collapse. A lot of people think we're in that right now, but what I believe it is, though, what I believe what happens is that through life, people seek wisdom. They find wisdom, they find what they're looking for, and they're never satisfied, and it falls apart for them because they give up, they fall into depression, and things happen. Just a reflection on my own life, and is that I worked at a job for 10 years ago. I don't remember much of it. It didn't do anything for me. And I keep looking now, and probably a lot of people, is that I'm trying to find something that works well for me. In the last few years since COVID, I've had many jobs, which is not usual. My average time at a job is probably about 6 years. In the last couple of years, I've worked probably like 6 or 7 jobs because I think the whole world's in a state where they don't know what they really want and how business is going to react to the different regulations and to the where everything's changing, how we do things, whether we don't just go inside a store and buy something, we can do it online now. But the thing is that I find myself in a situation is I find that, I a lot of times wake up, and by the way, this really hits home to me because in just a few days, I'll be 40 years old. Now, I don't really think much about that because every time everyone's like, oh, you're almost 20, that's a big deal. And then, oh, you're almost 30, that's a big deal. And, oh, you're almost 40, that's a big deal. I've never really been one like that. But the more and more I think about it, some reason 40 has hit me a little bit harder. I'm not getting depressed or anything about it, but I do look back at my life and say, hey, what have I done? And I've had lots of conversations with Brother Dan about this.
Because I'm old.
Yeah, yes.
You talk to the older guys like that. He said, well, you're almost dead. How do you feel?
No, but the thing is because one of the things that's hard is to see people who have been successful. And I'm not talking about successful just in life. I'm talking about good successful in the ministry and doing things. I see people that I went to school with, went to college with, who are now in almost their 20th year of service. And whether it's full-time Christian service, or I have a friend that's he's over 20 years at one job. I just think that's amazing that he's done that. And I look back and I'll be like, man, what have I done? And, what is a lasting legacy? But it doesn't, here's the hope that you get from Ecclesiastes. It doesn't matter. You can have a lasting legacy, but it's all going to be forgotten one day anyways. The conclusion of the matter is that we're here to do God's bidding. We're here to do the will of God and obey His commandments. So it doesn't matter what happens here in the future, what I'm going to do in the future. It doesn't matter what I've done in the past. It matters what I'm doing today. Amen. That is what I wake up and do tomorrow.
Amen. That's right.
Am I going to wake up and am I going to obey the commandment of God? Am I going to do His will? That's really what Ecclesiastes is the whole book about. You just see sorrow and sorrow, and it goes through each and everything, whether you're pursuing. It's the futility of human endeavors. It says that it reflects on the vanity of human pursuits such as striving for wisdom, pleasure, hard work, and wealth. A lot of people want to know more. You got people just studying. In fact, in the last chapter, it talks about just you can study and study and study, and it's just vexation, and it's just vanity. To know everything is just another vain thing you can do. You get pleasure, knowing all the pleasure of the world, multiplying a bunch of wives yourself, going and living, kind of like we learned about the prodigal son the other day, going and doing all that stuff. It's just vexation, it's vanity, it does nothing for you. You're not going to find pleasure in it. Hard work, there's people that are just hard workers, and man, do I admire hard workers. Occasionally I have spurts of hard work, but I even pray to God, and I prayed Him for years, is that He makes me a better, harder worker. And often because I've surrounded myself with people that are just, I'm like, I don't even know how they eat and sleep. They just seem like they're always working. But even that is vanity and vexation of spirit. because it's not going to do any more profit to you than it is anybody else. And the other one is wealth. You can multiply everything to yourself, but once again, when you die, you can take none of it with you. So he observes that everything is fleeting and ultimately meaningless. By the way, and number 2, I have the never-changing cycle of the world. The world just, the sun's going to come up, sun's going to go down. It's going to rain on the poor. It's going to rain on the wealthy. Things are going to keep happening whether you're here or not. And by the way, it doesn't matter what kind of legacy you leave. Ultimately, it's going to be forgotten or it's going to be destroyed. We have some great in our world right now. We have great men, not necessarily great theologians or anything, but we have great men whose statues and whose legacy are being destroyed because somebody's offended by them. And that's the end of the world. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad. Somebody's going to find a fault, and they're going to destroy your legacy. And that's just the nature of the world. It's going to go up and it's going to come down. The preacher notes that the earth remains the same with the sun rising and setting, and the wind blowing and the water flowing. He suggests that human lives follow a similar cycle of birth, death, and decay. Now, don't get depressed on this, that you have no meaning or purpose in life. We've learned already that we have a meaning. We have purpose in life. The thing is, our purpose is to serve God. Our purpose is to do His will and His commandments. Why are we here? We're here for His pleasure. And the thing is, there is happiness in knowing that. There's a happiness in doing the will of God. And the thing is that there's happiness in knowing that we are receiving rewards in heaven. God didn't just say that we're going to get rewards in heaven just so that we can just be like, oh great, I'm going to get rewards. I'm just going to do what God wants me to do. No, He's doing it because He wants us to earn those rewards. He's not only giving us free salvation, but He also wants us to give us something even more to pursue after. So there is also well-doing in doing the will of God. And as we saw, the importance is really to fear God. Despite the apparent futility of life, the preacher advises that people should fear God and keep His commandments. He suggests that this is the only way to find true satisfaction and meaning in life. Man, every time I read Ecclesiastes, it's an amazing book. Because everything goes over. I feel like it's something, everybody's heard that statement, I'm a master of nothing but a jack of all trades. And truly, that's kind of how I am. I really, in all honesty, I try to be a master of everything. There's nothing that I do that I don't want to be one of the best, at least in that room of. Whether I go to a job, I want to be best performing. Whether I go rock climbing or go working out, I want to see results. A lot of people ask me, hey, how do you get results how do you get the results that you get? And the thing is that you can probably ask Lauren, and ask my brother, and ask other people. It's because I keep going. I keep doing it over and over. I saw some guys the other day at the gym, and they were discussing what their new trainers just told them to do, and what their futures of their workout and what their goals are. And I just told them, hey, listen, here's the key. Just be consistent. Keep doing what you're doing and don't give up. And the thing is that what the purpose of me saying is that everything I see when I'm reading Ecclesiastes is that I want more wisdom. I definitely want more wealth. I want to be a harder worker. I want to have more knowledge and wisdom. And I want all those things. But the thing is, and there's nothing wrong with having any of those things. In fact, it's great for those that have those. The more tools that we have to serve God, the better we are, by the way. But the thing is like Tara said the other day to me, just talking, there's a pendulum of things. Too much wisdom, you have too much sorrow in your life. Too much wealth that you're not giving glory and honor to God, it's not profitable to God. And so there needs to be a pendulum. And the thing is that we always need to keep in mind is that at the end of the day, what is the purpose of the things that we are looking at after? What is the desires of our heart? The desire should first be to serve and do the will and commandments of God. And then the other thing is then we can enjoy those things that God has blessed us with. But what I have here is just a short video. Like I said, it's going to be just a short lesson today.
That's a good one, though. I'm going to tell you, that's real good.
And this is the guy's testimony, and it's amazing, and it's interesting because he was talking about right before he hit 40 with his family and the struggles and stuff he had. He was living a life that was meaningless to him, and nothing made sense, and it was sense to him, and it was hurting him and his family, and he was just wondering, why am I here? And people would come and ask me, he'll tell you, what about God? Well, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. Man, that's a sad statement. The thing is, there's no hope. And that's the thing. Why is Ecclesiastes good? Why is it a good book to read? Because it is a reflection of our own selves. Ecclesiastes is, I'm just going to say, it's like a mirror of ourselves. It's a great mirror to look at and apply and say, and think about, first of all, Jesus says you're reading as you ought to, but think about yourself as you're reading it, and you will see as a mirror, it's reflecting your own self back to you. And like I said, I'm about to turn 40 here, and I'm happy about it. And what I was saying earlier is that, it's a little sad that I haven't accomplished more in my life. I have accomplished a lot. I have a great family, I have a great wife, great kids. Great pastor. but like I said, I can get defeated, and I guess it's kind of like the last couple of months has been really on me. It's to lay aside every weight and the sin that does so easily beset us. The sin is one thing; it's the weight. One of the weights that are holding us back, and that's the thing I have to think about is that I may not have accomplished, but life's not over. I mean, Brother Dan's lost everything, once or twice, and came back.
Yeah.
I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. A lot of people don't like him, but he lost everything, and he's back again. And a lot of people lost everything and came back from nothing. In fact, that's probably why they came back, is because they were determined, and they realized that all that stuff, it's meaningless, when you have it, and it's meaningless when you don't have it. And so, go ahead.
When you lose something, it ought to light a fire.
Yeah.
It really should. Because if it doesn't light a fire, something's wrong. It shouldn't be a fire of, I quit. It should be a fire of, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I learn? This is with anything in life.
Yeah.
Now, how do I build upon that and make a better foundation where I don't fall there again?
Yeah.
And in business, same as in personal life or your spiritual life, you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
So just plan on that might happen, but what does my recovery look like? And how do I come back strong? Any athlete, any business person, any preacher will say, I have fallen, but I became stronger.
Yeah.
Right? If they're honest. Not everybody's honest,
Yeah.
but
That's
everybody falls.
That's one of my biggest things about individuality, about councils, about the government thing now, is that no one is allowed to fail anymore. If you have, there are safety things, but let's just say, take a baby product that has caused injury or death to, a number of kids. We look at how many across the whole, if 100 million people buy it, but only 3 or 4 people die, maybe there's other factors at play. Why do we have to ban something that works well for another 100 million people? If there's just no room for accidents and for failure. We don't want anybody to fail, and without that failure, no one can learn what real success is. And I think that's the thing about Ecclesiastes, and that's a good thing to end on before, is that we learn how much of a failure we are in our own life's pursuits, but how much of a success we can if we just follow pursuits of God when He has already given us. And so let's just watch this video. It's a great little testimony. Y'all may have seen this guy before, may have seen this video before, but I think it's worth watching for the work.
Amen. Good job. What's he saying?
Hold on. We're having sound issues.
How's your lip reading?
I'll be running for president in 2024.
No new taxes.
No, that's not gonna be.
Church and professing a faith in God, certainly. How do you want?
There we go.
I remember somebody asked me, how does an atheist from the south side of Chicago wind up living in Nashville, Tennessee as a born again Christian drinking churches? I was at a church last night in New Albany, and Nazarene, from clubs like this, and from Vegas casinos, and from Atlantic City, and how do you wind up working churches? And I got to tell you, 25 years ago when I started comedy in Chicago, this was the last place I expected to ever be is in front of a church, and professing a faith in God, certainly. And what happened was I crawled into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting 17 years ago, and all I wanted to do was stop drinking. That was it. That was my goal in life, was to stop drinking and try to be a civil human being to my family. I was not a nice man. Trust me. Let's just say I was an angry, bitter, jaded, cynical man. Just not nice. And I was harder on my family than anybody. I wasn't nice to many of you people, but I was harder on my wife and kids. And they told me to pray to a God, and they said, pray to this God. And I said, I don't believe in God. And they said, well, find something in this universe that's bigger than you. And I got to tell you, as broken as I was and beat up as I was, that was the hardest thing I had to do, was find something larger than me in the universe. Isn't that amazing? It's just how the human ego can be so large. And I could not get on my knees. I would not get on my knees and pray to anything. And after 7 or 8 years on that journey, and I read a lot of books. I read all the self-help books I could get. I was reading Ayn Rand and trying to get a hang on to something to make me a better human being. I really was. I was trying as hard as I could. I went to therapy, talked to people about my anger, my rage, all this stuff, and it wasn't working. I went through my whole life trying to feel like I belonged on this planet somewhere, and it just wasn't working. And God puts people in your lives, and trust me, if you're on a journey, pay attention to the people you come. Even the guy that hits you with his car is maybe there for a reason, And I met some interesting people when I look back on this. God put a man in my life. But God knows his own, man, and he knew I wouldn't talk to this man. I was a shallow, vacuous, empty vessel. I really was. And I didn't have anything to talk to this man about until I found out, because of his wealth, he had access to some of the nicest golf courses in America. He was actually a member of Muirfield Village here. And that's all I needed to hear. He was my new best friend. What I didn't know about him was he was a fundamentalist Christian, and I didn't know that. And we're sitting on the fairway one day just talking. And we're talking about life, we're talking about this, we're talking about that, and then he brings up the Bible. And I said, don't give me the Bible, I don't want to hear the Bible. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in that garbage. He said, well, what is it about the Bible you don't think is true? And I said, I don't know, I never read it. And he said, well, you're not an atheist, you're a moron. I have to tell you, I would have hit him, except that I would have lost access to Muirfield Village. I wasn't going to do that. And I asked him to explain himself, and he said, well, to be honest with you, a true atheist is not only a biblical scholar, but is scholarly in all the face of the earth. And after a long intellectual journey, has come to the conclusion that there is no God of the universe. You, on the other hand, want to circumvent the entire intellectual process and just come to the conclusion that there's no God. That's lazy and moronic. I didn't know what to say. So at the end of the week, he said to me, there's a guy in Benton, Texas, a man named Tom Nelson. He said he teaches the Bible the way I think you would like to talk. And I'd like to sign you up for some study tapes. And I said, will it cost me anything? And he said, nope. And I said, well, then knock yourself out. I'm not paying a nickel for that. And then he said, can I send you a Bible? And I said, hey, I've tried reading them. And believe me, I did. I opened them up in hotel rooms. I had read somewhere the Bible was the living, breathing Word of God. I didn't get it. I'd open it up, look at it. Come on, do something for me. I'd read it. I couldn't get it. I didn't understand it. So he sends me the tape, sends me the Bible. Time goes by, and God implodes my life. He was imploding my life. My marriage was falling apart. I couldn't deal with my life. Honestly, I tried. I'm telling you, if there was a book out there that I could have read that would have given me the tools that I needed to function in this life, I would have gotten it, because I have stacks of them, and I couldn't figure out how to make my wife happy. That was all I wanted, was to make her happy. I couldn't. We quit fighting. If you think acrimony is bad in your marriage, wait till you get to apathy. Apathy is the absolute worst. It's not even a feeling. It's just this. We couldn't even deal with each other in the hallway. We would sneak by each other, and we're sleeping in the same bed, and I'm reading, and my back is to her. She's watching TV, or nights she would read, I'd watch TV. I mean, this is our life together. And somehow we're getting through day to day, but I don't know how. And we're in a parking lot at Toys R Us, and she says, "You want a divorce?" That's what she said to me. "You want a divorce? We're buying toys for Christmas." And that's how she said it. As if you want to take out the trash. I mean, I look back on that time and I just go, wow. Who were those people? We look at that and we go, who were those people? But God has to move you to a place where you can pay attention. It has to all go away. You have to give it all up before he can work the restoring process. So I went home, and it says in the Bible, what Satan intends for evil, God will use for good. My biggest character flaw is procrastination. And Tammy had put it on me to fill out the divorce papers. And it wasn't like, we had anything to salvage. I figured, I'll fill them out. But I got thank you cards from 1988 I haven't mailed, So I just went home and I said, yeah, okay, we'll get around to it. And I had moved into the guest room, And this is how we were living. I'd go on the road, do my comedy, and I'd come in and I'd moved into the guest room. And we're raising these kids, and we're existing. And as God would have it, he moves this woman into my wife's life. My wife shows dogs for a living, and she's at a dog show, and this battered woman shows up. She's just beat, and Tammy says, you can't go back to that man. And she says, I got nowhere else to go. And Tammy says, well, we have a guest room. So she gives the woman my room, and I got to move back into the bedroom. And now we have a chance. This is an opportunity now. We have given up. We have let go of everything, and now we're going to talk. And believe me, it was difficult. There was a point after a couple nights I looked at her. She wouldn't even look at me. I was talking to her back for 2 days. I'd say something, and I finally walked over across the room and put my hands on her shoulders, and she flinches, and she says, I can't. I said, will you look at me? She says, I can't. How do you get to a place in your life with someone that you love? I know I love this woman. I know I do. I had therapists tell me I love her. For God's sakes, I love this woman, and we're at a point we can't even look at each other. She says, I can't. Jeff, I just fill out those papers. I just want to get this, I want to get it over with. And that was what I went out in the kitchen and filling them out. There's nothing to give away. We lost it all in bankruptcy. We lost it all, everything. I don't know if any man in this room knows what it's like to wake up in the morning with so much anxiety. As soon as your eyes pop open, it's just like the world caves in on you. And you walk around and you just want to know where it's coming from. I said it would have been so much easier if I woke up in the morning and some man just started beating me with a stick. At least I knew where the pain was coming from. And people would go, why are you so miserable? Because he keeps hitting me. My wife would ask me, why are you so miserable? And I'd go, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to be. I don't know. She goes, why can't you enjoy your job? I go, I don't know. What's the point? What is the point? Don't you care? There's a point. There's a purpose to this. My wife would go, no. I just want my family. 10 minutes from divorce court, she says, pull over. I want to rethink it. And I said, babe, if you're in this, you're in it for the long haul. I can't be playing this anymore. I can't. Let's just cut it and go. She says, no, Jeff, I don't know why. We know why now, but we didn't know then why. But anyway, we go home. 8 months goes by. It's not getting much better. It's getting a little better. It's not much. She comes to me and she says, I'm going to Ohio with the kids. And I said, we can't afford to go to Ohio. She says, you're not invited. And I said, well, how are you going to get there? She said, my father's going to pay for the trip. We're taking the boys and we're going for the summer. And she says, well, I'm going. You got to get your life together. I'm coming up on my 40th birthday, and I'm telling you, I have no clue. I have no idea. I went to Domino's Pizza to get a job to deliver pizzas, and they wouldn't hire me. You want to talk about humble? You're a 40-year-old man with a mortgage and kids and wife, and then you figure I'm lowering myself to get this job. And the kid looks at my application and says, comedian. That's it? That's the only job you had? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you want me to do with this? And I said, we're not splitting atoms. We're delivering pizzas, for God's sake. Apparently my interviewing skills had suffered over the years. But it was like, my God, don't make me beg for a job delivering pizzas. I go home and tell my wife I'm unemployable. I can't take it anymore. Anyway, she packs the kids up. And before she leaves, she grabs these tapes that I've been collecting. And she puts them in a pile. And she says, you either listen to these things or I'm throwing them out. And again, I had no reason to say, keep them. I hadn't listened. I hadn't even thought about them in a year and a half, 2 years. I don't know. I've just been collecting them and throwing them on the different houses. And that little voice, a little quiet voice, said, yeah, leave them there. Leave them on the floor. I'll get to them. I don't care, And a few days goes by, I'm walking by the tapes, and I said, little voice says, open one up. And I said, okay. I start to walk, another voice says, well, for what? There's nothing in there for you. Nothing. And then that starts, that whole dialogue of what's in there, I want to get it, When I read about demonic realms and angelic realms in the Bible, I went right back to this moment in my life. Because it was a struggle to get in there, because something knew what was in them things. And I ripped one open. I finally got over there after 5 minutes. I'm 40 years old, and I'm having an argument with myself in the front. I used to say that's why I got drunk in the morning. It was crowd control. But Just maybe I am nuts. I don't know. But I'm trying to get into this. And I rip one open. I throw them on the floor, and I go there. There's a couple tapes, and I go, all right, what am I going to do now? Pick one up, Ecclesiastes. And I couldn't even pronounce it. It's Ecclesiastes or whatever. I said, I don't know what this is. I got to get that Bible. Where's that Bible? Oh, it's in the junk drawer. That's where I left it. So I pulled the Bible out of the junk drawer. I put the tape into the machine, and I started listening to this pastor from Denton, Texas, talk about with Solomon. Solomon, this wise old man, 78 years old, wrote Ecclesiastes at the end of his life about life on earth. And it starts out with meaningless, meaningless. It's all meaningless. That got my attention. Boom. Because that's the way I felt. I couldn't find anything worth meaning in this earth. Really. Nothing. Not a career, not my wife, not my kids, not my cars, not my home. Nothing. And he starts talking about it. And basically, Solomon's conclusions were that life without God will have no meaning. And I didn't understand that. As he began to explain about the creation, in order to enjoy the creation, you have to know the one that created it. And if happiness were an act of will, we'd all be happy. Because that's basically what we want out of life. Everybody wants to be happy. You ask them. So if it was an act of human will, why aren't we happy? We're the most medicated species on the planet. We really are. And all it is, what I found out, what he said, was something has to come outside of us, inside of us. Change our hearts, and then work its way out through the act of service to others. And I was blown away. For the first time in my life, I heard something that made sense, and I believe it was because that day God chose to turn it on inside me. That was the light switch. Bam, it went on. And I was like, wow, this is it. This is what I was looking for. I wanted purpose. I wanted some reason to get up in the morning and put one foot in front of the other. And then I said, without God, I have no. Well, how do I get God? So I opened another tape, put another tape, another tape, another tape. Then because I'm a compulsive, addictive personality, I'm not kidding you, man. And I'm making notes in my Bible, and I'm going like, man, this is the greatest stuff I've ever heard. At one point, I wanted to run on my lawn and hold the Bible up. Have you read this thing? Wow, what a book! Man, this is amazing. Wow. And I don't know why it was 40 years or whatever. I mean, this was a 13-year journey up to this point. I'm not telling you, this did not come overnight. I didn't get the road to Damascus epiphany that Paul got. I'm telling you, man, I sought this. And I went out and I laid in fetal position. I used to go to the desert and scream up at God, all right, if you're up there, show me, you know. And I mean, it was today, that day, bam. And I'm listening to these tapes, and then he gets the Jesus that he knew. The one he says he was in a prison. And I'll never forget this line. I love this line. He was at a prison doing a sermon, and he said to the prisoners in this prison, he said, I would not walk across this stage to tell you about my religion, Christianity, but I will crawl on my hands and knees through broken glass to hell and back to tell you about the love of my Savior, Jesus Christ. And I heard that as a man. As a man, I said, that's what I want. I want something. I want something that I want to die for. I believe this, that a man is not, and I'm talking about a man, I'm not a woman, but I'm a man, and I said a man is not fully alive till he has something in his life that he's willing to give his life up for. And I'd like to think I'd give my life up for my wife and kids, but I'll tell you something, I'll give my life up now for my Savior and my right to profess this faith, because I'm telling you, it transformed my life.
Amen.